What's going on, guys? VZ Duelist here, and today I am bringing to you once again, but with better succession, my Tri-Brigade Sprite deck, that tried and true deck that I just always love and just continue to love throughout the past year. Tri-Brigade, and then when Sprite came out, it's like, of course, I'm seeing what crazy plays come of that, so I've just been completely addicted to this deck, but oh man, this deck is just so fun to play. I mean, I've played the pure variant back when with Ronin and everything, and that deck just was not fun. Play this, instantly love it, instantly love how impactful this deck is. So it's just incredible. This time I went to a locals and got first place with it. So, first off, I guess I should start up with the matchups. First matchup was just a dragon made dragon deck, so unfortunately it wasn't really too much of a contest for that. It was just kind of like a random build. Then the next one was Branded Despia. And I think that was my, no, that wasn't my, oh no, that was my only loss. 2-1. Just because he let me go first, go when he lost game one. So that threw me off, and I had a dead Harpy's Feather Duster in hand that I couldn't do anything with. So um, I had that, and then it was Runic Sprite, annihilated that deck, 2-0'd it, and then face up against Brandon Despia again, 2-0'd that. So unfortunately, I didn't face up against Tier or too many other Sprite decks or like Math Mech or any sort of variety, but it all in all, I was still facing up at least against one Runic Sprite uh, with Evil Twin and Live Twin. But either which way, this deck was amazing, so I'm gonna go through it again. Show my slight revisions. This deck just changes ever so slightly. So again, it's just staying the same for the 3 Fractal, 3 Kit. I'm waiting for the third one to come in the mail for the secret. 2 Karaz, 2 Nerval, because just getting the kit on field with a Sprite in hand is amazing. Getting Karaz is okay, but then it initiates the Sprites and then gets you going. So these are the key ones you want to summon. These ones are your facilitators. This is the one that you want in deck so that these two can facilitate properly. So that didn't change for the Tri-Brigades. So then going on to Sprites, of course, the ratio still remains the same. The 3 blue, the 3 jet, red and carrot. I'm honestly kind of on the verge of maybe taking out either a jet or a blue to try pixies, just because sometimes there's a call for using elf to special summon out the blue, and then you'd want to get pixies to like help you establish presence on board with a certain monster so that your opponent can't just beat over it. But for now, this is good. This is consistency call, so I leave it as is. It does prove to be very, very effective. I just hate always seeing that 2 jet in hand or 2 blues or just a mix of those two. And then we're keeping it at 2 beaver just because honestly 3 is good for the sake of consistency, but for this deck, you don't really mind your normal summon going to a Kit, because then that still extends you into other plays, because Kit then sends Nerval, Nerval add Karaz. So in the end, the Kit's a great normal summon. It's just Nimbles is kind of like if you have the Sprites, summon the Nimble Beaver if you don't have the Tri-Brigades. And again, like I always keep doing is double Nimble, go into Farrageets, and then Farrageets with a Sprite, go into Gigantic, detach the Farrageet, and then cycle out a card that you might not have wanted in your hand, so it kind of helps you mulligan. But this card is still amazing. I don't need it at 3. It's really not essential for this version. So that's it for monsters, the core monsters at least. Hand traps will come later. So spells, 3 starter, and then this is the oddball that kind of throws people off, is like just one of these. 1 tanky, 1 foolish, 1 prosperity. I know I've said this in the previous video. I don't like names that you can only use one of per turn, and that's the case for these two right here. That, and then just the fact that for this one, I only pulled the one out of my 3 cases. So, but simply put, these cards are amazing. I just like the fact that I have Tanky, and then I have Foolish, and then I have Prosperity. So if one gets Ash, I can still use the other. Though more often than not, your opponent's not going to Ash these, but still, it just helps. And then sometimes you maybe want a Foolish Burial, like, say, a blue, and then you have Elf, and then you Elf bring out the blue, and then you go with facilitating more plays. So in countermeasures, 2 Forbidden Droplet, I'm keeping this. This card is outstanding. Just the fact that you could activate this at any time. That was the thing that I always liked about Droplet over Dark Ruler No More, is that you could always do this thing mid-combo. You could use this thing on your opponent's turn. It's just such a necessity for any deck that can utilize any sort of fodder out of hand. To just dump it and either trigger off an effect or use that later. So decks like Phantom Knights are very resourceful for something like this. You pitch off your Ancient Cloaks, your Ragged Gloves, and you just use them later on. But this card is outstanding for this because of the Nerval and the kit. So, like, say that you have your Sprite plays, you have a random Nerval in your hand, you don't have any other Tri-Brigade, you can start doing your Sprite plays. The moment your opponent uses one of their board monsters, you use the Droplet, send the Nerval, and now you have your Tri-Brigade package. But yeah, Droplets to 2 is great. I don't necessarily want to see too many of these, but maybe a third one could be for consideration in the future. Possibly, maybe. Of course, the one Called By and the one Smashers. Smashers, you just have to be very conservative with this. Just wait for the big call for this one. I know a lot of people have been playing too. I just do not like the idea of this being ever in your opening hand. So keeping this to a minimum is like my thing for this. Otherwise, I mean, this deck kind of just steamrolls through anything and everything. So I really don't see the point in 2 Smashers, not until you go into games 2 and 3. So that's it for spells. And then the single trap for engine is going to be the Revolt, because Revolt, it's a busted card. People are not too strong on Ghost Spell yet. When people are, that's when Revolt's going to be kind of problematic. But until I start seeing more people playing that, then that's kind of going to be a safe bet. Usually I'd like to end my boards with a carrot to protect my monsters from anything. Elf would be the case for Bell. So in the hand traps, 3 Ash. As much as I hate this, it's working, so I guess I'm gonna keep it. I just fear the days that I run into 2 in my hands. Like, I just never like seeing that happen. And then we got 3 DD Crow, because this card is just meta call right now, and it's overpowered, and you can use it on either player's turn, and you could use it as many times in the turn as you want to. So this card is amazing. I love cards like that that don't have those restrictions. Veiler, it's just basically a 4th Infinite Impermanence, which I run 3 of. But I always see Infinite Imperm as the better card, because say that you face up against Tearlament, they get Winda on board. You just stop that Winda. You can then play. They have a Draco Stapelia. You don't have Droplet in hand. You do this, make sure you can play. This is just like your safe to push in sort of card when you don't have Droplet. But Droplet serves that purpose exponentially well. So this is kind of like opponent's turn 4 card response to effect negation. And then Droplet with these would be 5 cards going in. So I just see that kind of as like a bit of a duality for this, is for that exact reason. Just so that way these cards can kind of mesh together and serve each other's purposes properly. Maybe another Veiler, but I don't know. Maybe it'll be Ghost Bell, maybe it'll be something else. These hand trap ratios are weird, which is why I also play the 1 Ghost Ogre and making this a 42 card build still. Again, I've said it in the previous video, I like to hide my Revolts, I like to hide my Smashers, so I like to put 42 cards, but so far these are just testing sort of deals, these 2 and even Prosperity. Maybe if I can get my hands on another Prosperity, I'd do that instead, but Ghost Ogre, because Adventure Package is a thing, and Draco Stapelia is a card, and there are other cards out there that, they activate on your turn. You want to stop it. Valor can't really do that. They activate mid-combo. You can't really stop it with this. You have Droplet, sure, but this is basically another card for it. And then, again, for Adventure, it really cuts off their plays. And then even for Flandres, it stops the map. It can stop Apex Avian and stop those dead in their tracks. So that's it for main deck. Extra deck. This is where the change kind of really happened between the last video and this one. I went with 2 Ferrigit this time. I took out that Almirage because, honestly, that's just such a hangnail card. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. If you have to do Almirage, you're already losing, so you really shouldn't even be playing that card. Because, again, if you have to do that, you've already lost, and you've already shown your opponent that you're susceptible, and they can just interrupt you with an Ash right then and there, and you win. Because then you have to force your normal summon, and then you really don't have anything else after that. Only thing that would be if you were to try to bait out the Ash Blossom with a starter in hand. If you wanted to do something like that, that would be an idea. But so far, I just like this just for the sake of revolting when you don't have space, or you don't have enough materials in graveyard. That way you can at least have follow-up for the next turn. 1 Bear Broom and 2 Shurag. 1 Bear Broom just because of 1 Revolt. And then the 2 Shurag because, let's use 1 on one turn. Let's use 1 off of Revolt. And then the reason 2 works perfectly fine. I'd love to run 3, but for a card I'm going to show later on, and I think it was in my previous build too. Then there was Double Dragon Lords. 2 Elf, because this card is just Rugal, or, Rugal on crack. Serves the same purpose, in a way, but does better. Rugal is good for protecting DD Crow on your turn, so, like, if you DD Crow, you could, then they try to call by it, you chain Rugal, bring it back. I did that, I think, 1 time before in the past, before all this Sprite stuff came along, but it's just, a thing, but it's not too relevant right now. Not enough space for Rugal to fit into here. Rest of the links is Pit Night Early, Doom Eagle, and Access Code. Doom Eagle is mostly for Access Code, but hey, you can use that against Tier Element too. Pit Night Early is usually your end board when you're going first. Elf pointing to it, and then you just have a way to stop your opponent and facilitate it in several different ways. I mean, you could summon your Shurag to it, and then at that point you could banish 1 card and negate another. You could use Elf and then special summon out a Sprite, and then its effect triggers, and then it'll trigger this. So this card is amazing. It's just learn what it is that you're trying to stop and at what times. This card is outstanding for this deck, and I don't see any purpose to cut it. So that's it for links. So then the XYZs, Gigantic, Mannequin Cat, Downward Zeus. This time, neither of these came into play. It's kind of tempting to cut them, but I think somebody else said in their own deck profile for Tri-Sprite is that you still should have it, because God forbid you run into those times that you actually need it and you don't have it, and it's going to happen the moment you take this out. So definitely keep this in here as an option, because who knows, sometimes you do need to clear a board. Your opponent committed everything to board. You shut down all their plays. Let's clear the board. They have nothing in hand. There's no recovery for them. You have recovery, though. And then this is the card that I was saying for Shurag. Mannequin Cat is absolutely incredible, especially with what people are playing these days. It's a lot of darks, a lot of lights, which is why that By-Steed deck is going to be kind of good. Banishing darks and lights accordingly, but to interrupt plays and all that. But this card is outstanding, because then you could just special summon something of theirs out that doesn't necessarily have an effect. I did this in my Runic matchup, Runic Sprite Twin, and I brought back their Gigantic Sprite, and I used Mannequin Cat to get out the blue out of deck, And then in other cases, I could have did that to get a Shurag that was properly summoned out of my graveyard and bring that back out and then start facilitating plays like crazy with that. And then because Mannequin Cat and Shurag, you could even just link those off and then go into Elf again and then facilitate even more plays. But this card's amazing. I love this card. Like, it's outstanding. At first, I wanted the idea of 2 Gigantic break because if you have your link, it kind of helps you to get your beater. But Mannequin Cat with Shurag is just too good. And Mannequin Cat with any other deck is just, it facilitates into your sprites, and then you're good to go. Then you get your elf, then gets your or you get your blue gets jet gets something, then you go into your elf bring out something, that something brings out something. You just swarm board. So this card's amazing, and it's a great way, and I've had this several times, it's a great way to get something out of deck without needing this. If they drop Ash, you can use this to get Kid out, which is amazing. You can use this to special summon out any of the, just any dark. Get something really weak that doesn't trigger off, and get that. So this card is outstanding. I highly recommend people start playing with this. So then that goes into our side. Sorry, this video is kind of long. I'm just trying to be in depth, explain like the relevance from when I was playing these things, because some of them it just seems kind of odd. Again, most builds you usually see 2 Gigantic Sprite, and I know the exact reason why. It's to get that 3200 beater on the board, but honestly, Mannequin Cat with Shurag properly summoned, perfect. You just can't beat it. So side deck, there's a little bit of room for change here too. Pankratops, 3 Dark Ruler no more, double Cyclone, Harpy's Feather Duster for back removal, and then just board shutdown. This is the part where I'm thinking about cutting it down to 2, just because I run the droplets already. So it's like, I then will already run 4 things, and then I don't have to worry about the once per turn thing again. But this card is what I'd be thinking about taking something out for. Pankratops, it's good because of this side card. Evenly matched. I did do this against my Runic opponent on game 2 when they went first. They established a massive board. And what I did, I just summoned Pankratops, and then I forced them to use cards, and then by the end of it all, I just Pankratops send itself for cost to pop something for free, and then evenly matched because now I no longer control monsters on board. So these 3 have really good synergy going second against any deck. So as much as I kind of want to cut this for something a little bit more optimal, like another hand trap, this card is amazing. And because Sprite's still out there, you just kind of special summon that, beat over something, and just say, forget your elf, I don't care about it. But again, back row removal on top of the Smashers. I'm making the mistake of siding out Smashers when I should not be, because that card has come up a couple times where I wanted to search and I didn't have it. I need to polish up on that, but these were pretty much in the deck, so if, God forbid, my opponent had mine, no deck I really played against should have been playing it. This would have been it. But speaking of mine, that's why I play this. Anti-Spell Fragrance. I feel like people are sleeping on this card. This is the card to be going first with, because your opponent is going to be playing spell cards to push through all your defenses. They're going to have their Dark Ruler no mores. This says you can't use Dark Ruler no more this turn. If they have droplets, they now have to force cards out of their hand immediately to negate monsters on board. And then by that time, they pitched 2, they lost 2 cards, and you still have a live Revolt, and you probably have a hand trap or 2 to interrupt any other plays. So this card really shuts down stuff. I know Adventure Package is going around a lot too. Shuts that down. Tearlaments, they can't use their field spell the same turn. They don't have really any way to remove this card other than side options. But then that's why you would have Carrot with this set. Because then anything that they respond to with this, you just Carrot, negate it. Simple as that. And then because Carrot negated it, you now have the room on the board. And then the last one is D-Barrier, because this card does not affect this deck at all. I mean, it would affect Mannequin Cat, it would affect Zeus, but you scarcely ever see them, and you'd honestly be better off stopping, say, Exo Sisters from XYZ summoning anything. Um, and even like if you face up against sprites, you stop their gigantic play. Usually, and I did this before, what I did with this was actually I waited until the gigantic came out and they used its effect, and then I dropped this, because then they can't Zeus, and then they can't go into any more XYZ plays. So this card is actually something to kind of wait on for gigantic, let it just kind of get on board. Um, but other than that, this is good for Despia. This is good for tier limits, because then you say your deck can't do anything to me. These cards shut you down. And that's part of why I do run the Prosperity, and part of why I kind of want to run a second, just for seeing that card if I don't see this card, so that I can find this card a lot easier. But these cards shut down the game. These ones help to really clear up the board when your opponent overcommits. So when you play against decks like Tier Limits and Sprites, once you just get this card on field, they have no hand left. Then you just take complete control, get your kid out, get your blue out, and just win. But this deck is absolutely outstanding for what it does, and this card combination is an excellent point of reference. And I don't want to sound arrogant in saying that, but honestly, I feel like this is the most correct way to play this deck, because everything just facilitates itself so well. As for the hand traps, there was like the Ogre and the Veiler. That's kind of the soft spots that you can just do whatever you feel like doing. But for now, I'm just kind of testing it out. I'm testing to see how Ogre is for Tri-Brigade Sprite. It's not too essential, but it can come up. Anyways, excuse me, throat's a little dry. Thank you for watching again. Sorry, this is my third Tri-Sprite video in a row almost, but I just love this deck. I wanted to go into the locals yesterday with Mathmech, but something last minute just changed my mind and went with this, and it won me the tournament. $40 store credit is pretty nice. But I love this deck, and I hope you guys do too. If you guys have any suggestions, techs that work for you, or maybe some hand trap, like how I was mentioning certain flex spots, suggestions for those. Maybe some nibs for decks like Branded Tier Elements, maybe Buy Steed when that comes out, maybe something like that. Maybe some other people can support me on Ogre, maybe some people can convince me on Bell, or I know I put Joel and Locke in Mathmex, so suggestions are welcome. I'm definitely reading the comments when I can. But anyways, sorry this video was so long, but I'm definitely going to put in the title that this was in-depth, because I want to go in-depth with this deck. And like I said in my previous video, I love this deck to death. I love Tri-Brigade, and when I just see the synergy with the new Sprite engine that came out, it's just so fun to play, and it's so overlooked by so many people. And it's such an underrated build to what everybody else is looking at. They're too clingy to totally awesome, and they don't realize that Runic kind of has its restrictions too. But in all honesty, this deck is the fun one to play. It's very challenging, and that's the fun part of it. So anyways, guys, I'm not going to speak anymore. This is VZ Duelist signing off. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.